planning anything that's in a coastal area, starting to think about understanding that risk and then using that for the decision that you're investing your infrastructure in. Now the thing is, infrastructure we know will last us for a lifetime. That lifetime is 30, 40, 50 years. So within that context, that, if the wind speed goes up, how is that airport or electricity grid or a transmission line for a telecommunication tower, how are they prepared for those changing wind speeds? So that's the kind of work that we are trying to do. So building the science, building the evidence, building the understanding of risk, bringing that into infrastructure decisions that we'll be making for the next 30, 40, 50 years.
Any alert from particular place in future? Any alert?
Any alert?
Yeah. In future, any place in Tamil Nadu or wherever in the world.
So alerting. So the whole early warning system, that's mostly related to make sure that when the cyclone is upon us or coming close to us, with an advanced 3-4 hour notice, we help people make a decision. Do you stay in your home or do you leave? Do you leave? Where do you go? So that's all part of early warning system. Early warning system is geared towards communities to make decisions. It's also geared towards the power system provider, the water supply provider, for them to be prepared that if there is a cyclone coming, is my power system, power grid, transmission lines, are they going to be damaged? If they're going to be damaged, how quickly can I bring them back? So that all of those decisions, trying to make them with some advanced understanding of an event coming. That's all about early warning system.
Last 5 years data said super cyclone is recently faced in worldwide. Super cyclones.
Okay.
Not a cyclone, it's a super cyclone.
Okay.
Very effective cyclones.
Okay.
Why? Any particular reason for its changing?
Yeah. So, there's now growing evidence that the planet is about 1.1 degrees hotter compared to where we were before pre-industrial times. Now, because the planet is hotter, it is actually changing some of the weather patterns. So, in some places, not everywhere, but in some places, clouds, because of the increased heat, clouds can now hold more water. If clouds can more hold water, that means, there's the rainfall amount, the precipitation amount that falls actually is bigger than what we may have experienced previously. So this 1.1 degree warmer temperature is actually changing weather patterns. And at least in the near future, we're looking around and things don't seem to be getting very much better, which is why this agenda for DRR in this G20 working group has been very important, because it is allowing countries to at least agree that we need to do something more and more in the space of disaster reduction and infrastructure. And G20 countries taking leadership also sends a good signal that this is a really important topic for these countries and for the world.
Climate change, how climate change is getting more attention all over the world. How CDR is more important to concentrate more in climate change?
So CDRI's agenda is actually about disaster resilient infrastructure. So it's both disasters that are happening because of a natural hazard like earthquake. So it's related to earthquake, which has no relationship to climate change. But CDRI is also looking at climate change. So when we talk about disaster resilient infrastructure, it is both natural hazards and climate induced disasters. What we are trying to do is on one end, trying to get the science understanding of, what are these risks we are talking about. So getting a better understanding of that risk. And we're developing a global model actually for the world, which will actually start to understand risk from at least 6 kinds of hazards. We are also focused on infrastructure. So, recognizing that a country like India and a number of countries around the world have to build infrastructure in the next 30, 40 years. I mean, the amount of infrastructure that we need to build in the next 20 years in India, at least even in cities, it amounts to something like 20 Bombay's worth of infrastructure. So,
in this meeting, we will discuss with the man-made hazards for nuclear, chemical, biological.
It is natural hazard.
Only
natural hazard. So, on one side, we're building the science of the hazard, understanding risk. On the other side, we want to build the capacity of people to make decisions. So, train the next generation of engineers, train the next generation of architects, train the next generation of social scientists to be able to look at these problems and say, how do we come up with newer solutions? How do we come up with solutions that fit the context that we're dealing with, which may be very different compared to where we've been dealing with these problems in the past?
We are investing more and more in infrastructures.
Yeah.
We can't lose it just like the disasters.
Yeah.
So, how important to plan for each states in India? So we can plan for a country, but India is have more landscapes,
Yeah.
different landscapes.
Yeah.
So how important to plan for a different landscapes, sir?
Yeah, so it's very important. I mean, disaster at the end of the day is very local. It affects local, and different places get affected differently. So going down to the state and local level is incredibly important. At least at the national level in different countries, one can start to set up the methodology and then allow the states to pick up that methodology and put their own, nuanced understanding of risk at the local level.
Is CDR is ready to discuss with all state governments to take part in this
So
plan, sir?
CDRI is an international organization. We, we have 31 member countries and 8 organizations. So the decision making on what CDRI does is actually a collective decision making. But our mandate is capacity building and technical assistance. So we are really here to support in this whole agenda. So any request that we get, we will entertain it and say, okay, we will provide that support. That could be from a state in India or a state in other countries or a national government.
Sir, which country have good policy for disaster management?
India's got good, at least very good thinking in this space. Other countries, Indonesia has been working a lot in this field. Philippines has been working a lot in this field. Japan has been working a lot in this field. A lot of countries have been working in this field. I think the scale of challenges is increasing. So we need to keep thinking afresh as to what is the next generation. Technology is changing. How do we bring this technology for this solution? So I won't say any country has solved the problem, but a lot of countries are trying to solve it effectively. But the work that needs to be done, there's an incredible amount of work that needs to be done in this space.
Fund is any problem for this solution, sir?
Funding for infrastructure, if you look at it, that is where more fund needs to go towards infrastructure. To do resilient infrastructure, sometimes the cost of doing resilience is not that much more. And there's growing, again, a lot of examples where a little bit of investment in resilient infrastructure actually saves much more investment over the long term. So, if you put 1 rupee more to make something resilient, you might save 4, 7, 10 rupees in the future because you've not lost that asset, lost the services related to that asset in the future. So that, there's a lot of growing evidence along that space. So that is why we push for resilient infrastructure. The report that we'll be launching, it's the model that I talked about. There's also a report that we'll be launching in the next 2 months. That's finding that we are losing 1 to 2 to 3 to 4% worth of infrastructure because of disasters. So, we can't continue to take that chance. So then we have to focus on resilient infrastructure, particularly because putting money into resilience actually has long-term gains. We call it resilient dividend. You invest in resilience and you get multiple dividends. So the report will be out in 2 months, and I'll be happy to again talk about that report because that will have very good insights into this topic.
India's biggest population in the world. So any relation with disaster is very effective for India. So more dies in India. So we control the population.
I don't think the answer is controlling. Population control is not the answer. We have to invest in infrastructure. We have to provide services to people. We have to provide basic services, roads, water, electricity. We have to do that.
Okay.
We are doing that. We are actually investing a lot in infrastructure already. So the question is, can we make that investment more resilient? That's the question for us, for CDRI.
It's important for India.
For India, because we are growing a lot in terms of our, urbanization is happening. We are investing a lot in infrastructure. So it's definitely important. But also, this is where the leadership of India through CDRI because there are a lot of other parts of the world where also things are, there's growth happening, or the risk of disasters is increasing. So our global citizens, being global citizens, demonstrating value across the globe, that we are also willing to help to make countries more resilient, is something that we are trying to do as well.
It's a climate change or it's a climate crisis. What we call it?
I will just call it climate change for now. Yeah.
Sir, last question.
Yeah.
The disaster risk management, the full stakeholders being a government or a government institution is taking the full stake in the management risk. So, is there any scope in future to private sectors to come in to take part in this management?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, when you think about who's building the infrastructure, a lot of infrastructure is being built with private funds. Private funds are building roads and doing the BOTs, for example, building a road, operating it, transferring it to the government, right? So private sector is more and more aware now, or getting more and more aware, that their investments also could be at risk. So both have a role here.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.